Andrew Robison, President and owner of Petrus Development. I want to thank you for taking the time to be on this year's Nonprofit Productivity Summit. And we're super excited to have you. And for those who might not be familiar with you or Petrus, why don't you give them the elevator pitch of who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, Mike. It's an opportunity that I am pleased to have. I'm always looking for ways to be more productive and more efficient. And the work that you're doing here is just really inspirational and helpful to so many. So I'm glad I can contribute to that at this conference. So Petrus Development was founded in 2005 by two guys who really wanted to invest in building up fundraising programs in the nonprofit community. And so I have been in fundraising since that same time. I worked for a couple of different Catholic centers and then a university foundation. In 2017, I joined Petrus full-time as the president. And now I am the owner and president of the organization. And we have on our team, we have 23 individuals, both full-time, part-time, and contract workers. We work with nonprofits, schools, universities, parishes, dioceses, campus ministries, and really our goal is to help them get better at fundraising wherever they are. So some of our clients have never mailed a direct mail appeal, have never sent a newsletter, don't have a database. And so we help them on the front end establish a strong foundation that they can build on. And then we have organizations that have been doing fundraising for years or decades, but have a big project and have never done that or need some help. And so we work with organizations at that end to do feasibility studies, capital campaigns. Really, our goal is to learn what the needs of the organization are, learn what their goals are, and then bring our years and decades of experience in fundraising and in consulting to that engagement and really try to help build that organization wherever they are.
And, in full disclosure, in my day job with CCMA, we've really benefited from the services of Petrus. And I know that there's a lot of large shops out there. There's a lot of kind of solopreneurs helping nonprofits raise money. I feel like you guys have found that middle ground in that you can do the big capital campaign for $50 or $75 million. But like you said, you're also nimble and small enough, and I think humble enough to help those that are just getting started in terms of some of those most basic fundamentals. So we're going to talk about some of these fundamentals of fundraising. And then after that, we'll pivot and take a look at your life and how you try to be productive on a day-to-day basis as a professional fundraiser. So we want to talk through what you're considering these 5 keys or building blocks of fundraising. And so let's get into it. What are these 5 key fundamentals?
Yeah, so I think that everybody wants to have more money. Every nonprofit needs more money, right? There's no doubt about that. When you have more money, you can do more mission. I mean, that's just the bottom line of fundraising and nonprofit work. But the trick is, how do you build an enduring fundraising program, right? One that sets you up for success now, but also allows you to build on that for success long into the future. Because I think, I know from my perspective and many other nonprofit leader perspectives, it's not about, the nonprofit shouldn't be so invested in one key individual that it can't endure beyond that iteration or that person or that board or whatever. And so the important way, or the critical way to do that, is to really focus on what I've found to be 5 essentials. I've been doing this for 17 years, close to 18 years. And these 5 can always pop up as the most important. So, and I want to make it clear, these are not in a particular order and they're not in a linear order. So there's no way to say from a fundraising standpoint, this is always what you start with and this is always where you end. You're constantly doing all of these, right? So the 5 essentials would be to recruit an advisory board, recruit a strong advisory board, to build and grow a database, to craft a communications plan, to launch a monthly giving program, and to cultivate and solicit major gifts. So I think if you look at those 5, they all work together, they all support each other. And then over a long enough period, if you're doing each one of those 5 properly and appropriately, then you're looking at building an enduring program that can raise money and continue to raise more money over years.
What do you say to that charismatic executive director, school principal, I don't know, who's just really dynamic. And it seems like people just open their wallets and they say, oh, Andrew, I don't need these things because we've got person X, Y, or Z at the helm. They're so gifted. And look, our annual fund is increasing every single year. And we're just coming off a successful campaign. We're just going to ride that horse. What do you say to that person?
Yeah, look at my own experience. In my first job at St. Mary's Catholic Center, Texas A&M, which now, they just completed a $30 million building campaign. This was following a $10 million campaign to pay off some debt and build an addition. So they know a thing or two about fundraising. Well, when I worked there in 2005 to 2008, two of my bosses, the two priests who were directors there, they both were amazing, similar experience. They saw the work that was going on, they saw the impact, and they were willing to support. Both of those two were appointed bishops and moved into other dioceses, right? So we lost both of them. And so if we had been totally reliant on that individual, or on either one of them, thinking that's who we're going to ride the coattails to success, 30 years later, who knows what the program would be like. So it really was, in that case, a testament, and it continues to be a testament to the systems, the processes, and the work, the holistic work, I guess, of addressing all of these that have led to enduring success. And today, right, they raised over $30 million for this building, and it was a lot of work, but it was done. Well, at that time, when I was with the program, we hustled and we worked hard to raise $6.5 million, right? And so you think about just the work, the ability to grow on that foundation. And today they're raising, in that case, 5 to 6 to 7 times what they were. And we thought we were doing amazing work back then. So if you develop the systems and the processes, then I think you can you can outperform anything that you're doing today, even though you think that what we're doing today is amazing.
Let's talk about a couple of those 5 key essentials. I want to revisit the one about building a database. And I might ask you, fill in the blank. A good database is?
A good database is not an Excel spreadsheet. Can I say that? So too often I work with nonprofits who say, we don't need a database. We have an Excel spreadsheet with names and phone numbers and addresses. What more do we need? So a good database is really it allows you to do things that just a list of names and contact information won't allow you to do. It can track activity, right? So a good database allows you to have contact information, but when you meet with a donor or you mail a letter to a donor or a prospect or a potential benefactor, potential donor, you track that and you track that activity. And over time, a development team, a nonprofit leader, future development teams can look back at that activity and see how they can continue to build those relationships. So a good database allows you to track activity. I would say the best databases now also allow you to integrate other activities specific around philanthropy and charity directly into your database. So good databases, oftentimes they have a platform that allows you to process online gifts. So when those gifts are made on your website or after a giving day, they go directly into that database, into the records. And in some cases, they're even able to automatically trigger you to send them a thank you note or to send an automation that allows you to build that relationship. So good databases, they allow you to track activity. They allow you to properly steward your donors and manage those relationships over time. And then in terms of growing a database, right? So go back to that example of St. Mary's at Texas A&M. That first campaign started with 144 names in the database. Literally 144. Wow. Today, they have over 60,000 names. And it's because when I was there, I know that I was, and they've continued to be obsessive about adding names to the database. And it sounds kind of over the top to say it like that, but if you're not obsessive about adding names and growing your list and growing your reach, then that's where a nonprofit is going to struggle. And so what do I mean by that? Every opportunity you have to capture names and contact information, you're doing it. Sometimes that means, events. When people show up to an event, you should always have a sign-in sheet for people to put their name and their phone number, right? And we found, this is just a little tip, we found that addresses are great. physical addresses are great, but if you can get a donor's phone number and an email address, that's almost more powerful than the address, because you can go back and find the address, right? But finding a cell phone number in particular, it will gives you a lot more for flexibility and opportunity to connect with them. So events, lead generation forms on your website, sometimes that means donor activities, so giving days, virtual galas, things like that, where you have new donors, you're capturing them and you're adding them to your database. So you do that long enough, and eventually you can go from 144 names to 60,000 over time, right? It's about playing the long game with that database, but that will allow any nonprofit to have a strong foundation and know who your benefactors are and how you're going to grow your development program.
There's a lot of nerdy, I mean, really smart people who are participating in this year's summit. And while we're not really, endorsing any one particular app, I know Razor's Edge is for many, parts of fundraising, the big dog in the world of fundraising. What is a more humble database that you find yourself just thinking well of, or maybe even recommending it from time to time?
Yeah, so at Petrus, we really focus on 3 recommendations, right? And there's no endorsement here in terms of, right, we're not getting any benefit. But the 3 that we see clients use successfully, there's 3, and I'll start with the most basic one. Breeze. Breeze CRM is a great nonprofit. It's low functionality, meaning it does exactly the minimum of what you need it to do, but it's reliable and there's no limit on how many records you can have. And you're talking with Breeze $50 a month, I think, for your kind of basic subscription. The next one that we recommend is Bloomerang. Bloomerang is an amazing database. I've used it. I've recommended it to others. We have clients that use it. And the thing that sold me on Bloomerang is how active their blog and their webinar and their teaching is. So any organization that is that actively teaching and learning how to and informing people how to use their product, it means they're investing in their product and they're constantly adding features and adding functionality. So Bloomerang is a really great database as well. And then the third that I recommend is Virtuous. Virtuous is probably the newest out of those 3, but Virtuous is doing a lot in terms of automation. So like I mentioned earlier, a donor makes a gift on your database, it triggers an automation. It triggers a letter or an email to that donor. Well, then it also triggers automation for adding that name to your call list, and then adding that name to your thank you note list. And so it's just it's really smart in that way. And I like that a lot. So those are the 3 that we recommend: Breeze, Bloomerang, and Virtuous.
Neat. Hadn't heard of Virtuous. Let's talk about the essential of a monthly giving program. So, these are presumably smaller gifts per month, but don't have to be. And what's I don't want to say what's the secret to growing that? Is it harder to begin a monthly giving program or sustain a monthly giving program?
That's a great question. And so I love monthly giving programs. I did my master's degree back in 2008, master's in philanthropy and fundraising, and I wrote my thesis on monthly giving programs. So that tells you how much I love monthly giving programs. I think they are critically important and often overlooked by nonprofits because, to your point, they're smaller gifts, right? So somebody says, well, why would I be asking for a $50 a month gift when I can go ask for $10,000 gifts? And I'm not saying do one or the other, but I'm saying organizations that invest in those monthly giving programs, they allow you to plan in a way that you just can't do with if you're reliant on just those big major gifts, right? So monthly giving programs are great. Just a couple of facts about them. Monthly donors give on average 96% more per year than one-time donors. And that's just a matter of, somebody will write a $150 check, but they'll sign up for $25 a month online. And you just do the math, and that $25 a month is ultimately a lot larger than that $150 gift. So a couple of steps to you mentioned about, is it more difficult to start or to sustain? There's really sustaining a monthly giving program is kind of a tricky thing to say because you're never sustaining it. You're always having to grow it, right? The opportunity is there to always focus on it and build it. So the steps that I see nonprofits take to have a successful program is brand your monthly giving program, right? Give it a name: Living Faith Society, Sustainers Club, Founder Society, something like that just gives ownership and clarity around that. So brand it. Update your website and your appeal remittance pieces to reflect we have a monthly giving program and it's really easy to sign up. So that convenience is a major reason why people give. launch, if you're just starting it, launch it with a coordinated effort. So I like to think of this in the three M's. Messaging, meaning you use all channels to talk about your monthly giving program: direct mail, phone, website, social media, email, testimonials. Motivation, talk about why an individual would want to give. Again, I talked about convenience a minute ago. Giving is very budget friendly. A lot of our donors, my family included, right? We can commit to $100 a month as part of our budget over time, whereas it's harder for if somebody was to ask us, would you consider $1,000 gift, right? So it's budget friendly. Yeah. It increases the impact because you're giving more. And then there's some motivation for people is, I want something in return. So coffee mugs, right? Something simple. A t-shirt can be a really simple. So that's motivation. And then matching. Launching a monthly giving program with a matching gift program. So double your gift if you start a monthly gift in this weekend or this month, that can be really powerful. So brand your monthly giving society, launch or update the website, launch it, share stories, and then ask everyone. And you do those 5 things and you can grow a monthly giving program and sustain it.
I love that. That makes me excited. Let's take a look underneath the hood of Andrew Robison, right? Professional fundraiser, leading a growing team, a company that's serving a variety of different kinds of clients around the country. What would you say is a productive week for you?
Yeah, so I think that part of why it's been easy, or part of why I was able to come up with those 5 essentials, is because I just think back to what are the 5 things that if I do a little bit on each of those things every week, then I know that we're building sustainability and we're building a long-term program. So recruit an advisory board. Mike, I know that you have a board with your work with CCMA, you serve on other boards. So investing in those relationships constantly, just with, sometimes it's small touches and sometimes it's scheduling big events. So investing in your advisory board members, focusing on your database. How can I add new names? Do I have a lead gen form on my website that needs to be updated? Things like that. Crafting a communications plan. Communications is really about informing and asking. And so if you can set a schedule for that for the year, then a communications plan in that regard will keep your donors happy and giving. And then monthly giving, Erica Wasdorp, who wrote a really great book about monthly giving and written a couple, she recommends spending 1 hour a week on your monthly giving program. And so if you can do that, then that's an investment in time that will pay off over time. And then cultivating, soliciting major gifts, right? You're constantly having to make calls, set appointments, meet individuals, cultivate those relationships, and ask for gifts. And so I think that from my standpoint, a successful week for me as a fundraiser would be, did I hit on all 5 of those? Advisory board, database, communications plan, monthly giving, and major gifts. And if I did in some way, then I think I can chalk that up as a successful week, that I am moving the needle forward in our fundraising efforts.
Let's talk about something that you did recently that was not controversial, but was a big thing, right? You announced to your team that you were going to be taking a significant amount of time off, right? Was it a month?
Yep, a month.
So what was their initial response? And then if you could sum up, maybe 2 key things that you learned from that sabbatical experience, what would they be?
Yeah, so just a 30-second background where this came from. I took on this role full-time in 2017 as the president. I purchased the company from the previous owners at the end of 2019. And so in July of 2022, this year, it was 5 years. And I read a book back in the spring called Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz, and he's written a couple of books. But in that book, it really was about too many times organizations become super reliant on their founder or on their leader for every question, and every decision has to be made by that person. And while that is certainly flattering to that founder, right, or to that person, that leader, it presents a situation where scaling the organization is almost next to impossible. And so from his recommendation in Clockwork, it was about design systems and processes for your team that you don't have to be on call 100% of the time to make every decision. And I thought, this sounds great. This sounds wonderful. I love it. And then the way he sort of, pressure tested that idea is he said, and once you get all these systems in place and you have a plan, take a month off. because that will force the team and it will force you to really commit to this plan. And I said, wow, that is terrifying. I don't know how in the world we could do that. A month out of 12, that's almost 10% of the whole year. I'm not available. But I started talking with my team back in the spring, and I brought it up one person at a time, right? We have an executive team, and I didn't just announce it at a staff meeting. I talked to every person individually, and of course, everybody was like, "That sounds great, Andrew," but I could tell there was some hesitation. And then I had a week in July when my family was in the mountains of Colorado, and I was completely unreachable. And so that was sort of a primer for it. But ultimately, when it came down to it, we did a lot of preparation, a lot of planning, and there were maybe twice that I had to, I got a text that said, we think we can answer this question, but we just wouldn't want to make a decision that you're going to be unhappy with at the end. And I said, great. But other than that, they managed everything. We had new contracts signed. We had new clients come on. We had issues with clients that were resolved. And then we ended it with a 3-day planning retreat, annual retreat we already had planned. And we spent 3 days in Austin together, the executive team. And, I thought we would be talking about this, unpacking this for, a full day. And I mean, we spent maybe 45 minutes, and everybody said, yeah, Andrew, we managed without you. We were prepared, we were able, and we feel really good about the direction and our roles. And I said, great, let's plan for the next year. So it was really empowering for them. It was encouraging for me as well, being in that role. And it was scary. I talked myself out of it and back into it probably 6 or 7 times in the months leading up to it. But ultimately, some wise people said, do it, and everything will be fine. Take the month off. And I did. And it was great.
Would you recommend that for other nonprofit leaders?
100%. Now, I think there's a caveat to that, right? So like I said, if I just said to my team, I'm taking a month off, I'll see you later, that would not be a healthy way to enter into that sort of experience. But the goals were to empower the team, to build systems into place, and to create a culture where even if the boss was unavailable for an extended amount of time, the company would be sustained. Those were my goals. So that's how we planned for it. And I think with that in mind, and if those are your goals, I think that could be, I think it's a great exercise. I have little kids, as you know, and so I literally spent the first week sitting on the floor with my 3-year-old potty training. And, I built magnet tiles. We went to the park it was not a relaxation vacation. But it was a good experience for me as well, personally. And I think that there's a lot of positive that came out of it.
Sounds amazing. Let's start to land the plane. And I want to, connect this conversation with some of the others in the summit. So Patton McDowell is another interviewee, and he talks about how it's absolutely essential for him to do a David Allen style weekly review, that he just can't start a week without doing a weekly review. And he talks about, he starts it on Saturday morning, does a little bit, and then finishes it on Sunday night, and which is so cool and so interesting. We have David Sparks, who also talks about how he does a weekly review and uses a particular app to do that. How about for you? How do you get ready for a week?
Yeah. At this point in my life, I am looking to grow in those ways about being more diligent and more intentional about the week. But I would say at a bare minimum, I know if it's a travel week, I need to let people on my team know that I'll be out and, who's handling it. Every Tuesday, we have a staff meeting, and we got into a pattern of if I was gone, if I had to travel that week, then we just canceled the staff meeting. And there was feedback that said, why are we canceling? We still have things we need to talk about, Andrew. And I said, yeah. So, about being about my time and my availability, how it affects the rest of the team. That's certainly a thing that I do every week, is I look at that and how am my availability or my unavailability affecting everybody else. I have standing meetings every day, and they're everything from staff one-on-ones check-ins to client calls, to prospect calls. And so I do like to review my week ahead and look and see, what do I have coming up and how do I need to prepare for that? As a fundraiser, that was something, every trip that I ever went on, I had a whole process where I printed my maps. I did call reports, the last 5 call reports for every donor. And I made sure I had all my documents ready. I laid it all out. I mean, I was using printed Google Maps long into the days of I could look it up on my phone, but it helped me prepare. And so I think I still carry some of those over when it comes to traveling and then client work. But certainly, I'm interested to watch some of the presentations that on this to learn how some other people are doing it well.
Yeah, there's some great resources and we're learning from each other. So I'm with you there. Um, Andrew, thanks so much for your expertise. Thanks for sharing behind the scenes of Petrus Development and you personally as the leader. How can folks find out more about Petrus?
Yep. So Petrus Development is our website, Petrus development.com. And my information's on there, Andrew at petrusdevelopment.com. My phone number is on there. And also you can follow me on LinkedIn. I've really found that to be a platform that I can learn from a lot, and then I can add to and support others. So look me up on LinkedIn, connect there, and I post content just about every day. And I love to engage with all the other smart people on that platform as well. So
cool. Thanks, Andrew.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mike. It's been a pleasure.